10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FPC Radio Live. It's Monday. We are finally on the air. Oh yeah, that's right. Let's rock it out a little bit. Let's get in the mood. Let's get our energy up a little bit here because it is early. It is Monday morning, and there's several fan bases out there right now that are either distraught or haven't been able to sleep a wink. And of course, that means we know what Super Bowl 55 is going to be. And I know I said last week, and I said over the weekend that a conference championship weekend was the Tom Brady Invitational. Well, I'm going to amend that just a little bit and say that is one, but the main Tom Brady Invitational tournament is Super Bowl weekend every single year, because guess what? In his 19th season as a starter in this league, he is on his way to his 10th Super Bowl. So it's incredible. Obviously, you know, if you tune into the show, you know Tom Brady gets his fair amount of praise because, well, you know, hey, that's what we do here, and I've never been ashamed to say it. But we're talking about 10 Super Bowls here, folks. Next closest guy, John Elway, went to 5. That's half. If math hasn't changed since I was a kid, that amounts to half. Half as many Super Bowls as Tom Brady. So it's incredible. We're going to get into that. It's a matchup that I think, looking back now, it just seemed like it was destined to happen, and it's going to be a really fun one, I think. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that. So I'm not going to waste any more time here, though, because I got to bring in my co-host. And to bring him in, I just want to remind him of one thing, something I'm excited to be able to bring back and to play over and over and over again for the next 2 weeks at least.
If Tom Brady wasn't living, y'all could be in the Super Bowl.
No wiser words have been spoken until my good buddy here, Mike Debate, opens his mouth. Mike, how's it going, bud?
La la la.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, sorry. No, sorry. I was. I know you're. Hold on. Here you go. There you go. Okay.
La la la.
There we go. That was my bad. I kind of figured we'd open with the Steve Harvey one, and then I figured, yeah, you know what? He's probably waiting for the hello, and that's, you gotta say hello, you know, and I didn't say hello, so I apologize.
You still say hello? No, all kidding aside, folks, it is great to be here on a Monday morning. Super Bowl 55 is set in stone. And, you know, I mean, we're not the type of guys that say we told you so, but we kind of told you so at the beginning of the season. Especially this great man right at the beginning. He said it right from the get-go. I mean, this really kind of was the destined, you know, destination for Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. You knew the Super Bowl was going to be in Tampa. Tom's definitely had this date circled on his calendar. Regardless of what the idiot pundits will tell you out there, he did everything he needed to do to earn that victory. Now, yeah, well, there's some shaky spots in the second half. Absolutely. We'll talk about those. But great victory over Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers yesterday. Of course, the defending Super Bowl champions looked like the defending Super Bowl champions last night against the Buffalo Bills team that still, I think, is a cut below maybe where they need to be. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I talked up the Bills an awful lot this season. I really believed that, you know, they had a chance. I did pick the Kansas City Chiefs to win that game on Friday here on the show. I did make that prediction for Sunday, but at the same time, you're still holding out hope that the Bills would have been able to give it a go. But some questionable play calling on behalf of Sean McDermott, some, you know, questionable performance about you know, Josh Allen, maybe not ready for prime time quite just yet, but there's still a lot of promise there. I think Allen is still on the cusp of being a very, very good quarterback in this league, one of the more elites. And congratulations to both the Chiefs and the Bucs. This is going to be 2 weeks of hype like you can't imagine. It's going to be agonizing for the two of us, but at the same time, I think it's going to be a fun one.
Let's first of all, there's a couple things, and we're going to get into the game. John Sapichetti is going to join us here in a little bit. We're going to have him here a day early because, again, you know, we got to put an end to Aaron Rodgers' season and all that stuff and kind of look ahead to the Super Bowl. But the reality of this, for the folks out there that have started this, Patrick Mahomes is on pace to be the GOAT. Now, I'll preface all this by saying I thought last night was probably his best game I've seen in weeks. And again, I'm probably one of his harshest critics because, again, I think the over-the-top admiration for the kid is exactly that, far too over-the-top, because they're making simple things seem outrageously difficult when it's really not. There's a lot of weird coverage of the guy. Anyways, I thought he was great yesterday. I thought my main criticisms of him are mainly that he's not as incredibly accurate all the time as people think. When coverage gets a little bit tighter, it tends to get a little errant with his passes, and you know what? That's something that can come in time. But I thought he was great yesterday. But my main point being, if you're folks that were talking, he's on pace to be the GOAT, which is, look, that whole argument in and of itself, it's stupid. I'm not going to mince words. It's stupid. So, and this is why. Because guess what? Tom Brady's still going to Super Bowls. How can you be on pace to be someone that is still playing and still winning? And really, when you think about it, Mike, what ground has Patrick Mahomes really gained? As impressive as it is for him to have gone to 3 straight AFC Championship games and now going to his 2nd straight Super Bowl, how much ground has he really gained? And I guess it's rhetorical, but really I'm asking you because if you think about it, he really hasn't. Because if Tom Brady goes out and wins this game in 13 days, he starts all over again. He's even more behind than what I believe currently is now. Because, I mean, let's face it. People are talking about, he's going to get to 10. Do you guys realize how absurdly ridiculous 10 Super Bowl appearances are? It's so incredible to even think about, and almost in the exact opposite, it's incredible that people would even suggest that someone so early in their career, despite how good they are, would easily attain that. And the best part about it is 10's not even the final number. We're talking about 10 because, well, that's all we know. In 2 weeks, it could be 7 wins, 10 victories, and hey, guess what? Next year, they could go right back to the Super Bowl, and you're talking about 11. And the bar continues to set higher and higher and higher. It's crazy to think about. Like I said, someone like me, I'm the biggest Brady honk out there. So take that for what it's worth. But I've never been more right. And this is where I'm going to take a little bit of a victory lap. But I've never been more right about one thing in my life. I mean, if you look at my predictions for 2020, I was wrong so much, except for Tom Brady. And part of that is because, well, I've watched that player more than any other player in my entire life. I've watched him intently. I've had a great deal of need to want to watch him play and all that stuff. And the idea that some of these narratives that come out of this is trying to knock the guy down when he's going to his 10th, Mike. 10. I don't even know. We could have spent a whole hour just going back and forth saying 10. Like just over and over again. And the impact would be there. I think people would finally realize, 10's a pretty big number. 10 is a pretty big number. So, I don't know. Look, Tom Brady's great. We're going to get into, obviously, predictably, there's a narrative coming out of yesterday's game about, Tom Brady was carried. Tom Brady got lucky. Look, think about this. As bad as, 3 interceptions is bad. We're not going to mince words here. There was a couple poor throws, poor decisions. Things happen. The guy just came off a run where he hadn't thrown a interception on the road in 392 pass attempts. I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack. This is on top of having only thrown 1 interception over the course of the last 7 or 8 weeks, and that 1 interception being that weird Scotty Miller catch fumble into the hands of a defender. So again, what are we talking about here? But the Bucs had 28 points before Tom Brady threw a single interception in that game. The Packers only scored 26 points. So what are we talking about here? The Bucs defense was fantastic yesterday. They made key plays. They had guys that were out. Obviously Antoine Winfield was not playing in that game. That's a huge loss for them. Jordan Whitehead goes out when he takes down Aaron Jones. They both leave the game at the same time. Both starting safeties out, and they still were able to prevent the Packers from really doing much in the end zone. And for those who want to sit there and say, see, another example of Brady, he throws well, no, Brady was a huge part of that. First off, opening drive touchdown, right down the field, right off the bat, you set the tone. Go to the end of the second half, when you're thinking, okay, maybe they get a field goal, they put the dagger, deep pass, Scotty Miller, touchdown with no time left in the second half. Those are the two key moments in the first half. And then the defense obviously held their own, more so, well beyond that. I mean, they were fantastic in a lot of key situations, and that's why they won. Tom Brady was great for most of the game, except for there was a 7-pass stretch where, again, things kind of went a little funky, and I'm not really going to put too much weight on that because I don't expect that to happen again.
No, I don't expect it to happen again either. And look, I'm really glad you mentioned the opening drive, because to me, that set the tone for the game. You say that the kryptonite to Tom Brady is to blitz and play man coverage. You play zone, he's going to pick it apart all day long, every day of the week, twice on Sunday. What do you want the Packers to do? They brought it. They brought the blitz. They brought the man coverage on that drive. What did Brady do? He beat it. He knew that was what they were going to do. He could see it. He could read it. No one's ever done it better, and I don't believe anyone ever will do it better than what you saw Brady do on that opening drive yesterday. And he took the Tampa Bay Buccaneers deep into Green Bay territory and got them into the end zone. Set the tone right off the bat, 7-0, keep the home team on their heels, and they didn't look back. I love how people will say he was carried. It was terrible. He had an awful second half. It wasn't as bad as people will think. Go back, take a look at the statistics. Just look at the charts from the second half. You'll see that, like you said, there were some stretches there. There was like a 7-way stretch where Brady did have some difficulties, and a couple of those interceptions were bad throws, bad decisions. You're going to have those during the course of the game. I love how nobody's talking about some of the bad decisions, bad throws that Rodgers made yesterday as well. He wasn't all sunshine and rainbows either on the losing side of this. But what Brady did was he gave his team an opportunity to be in the game. He gave his team the opportunity for those miscues and those difficulties to not matter. That's what the great ones do. Rodgers nearly did it last night as well. I don't want to make it seem like Rodgers had a terrible game. I wasn't really dissatisfied with the game that he had. Questionable play calling, obviously. I think kicking it down the stretch. I understand what Matt LaFleur was thinking. I almost said Peter LaFleur. I understand what Matt LaFleur was thinking. But at the same time, I also understand, the argument of you've got to go for it. You got to put the foot on the accelerator in that situation because it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you're playing Tom Brady. You need 7. You can't, or 8. You can't settle for 3 in that situation. But it is what it is. But
my mic was muted, but I was laughing at the Peter LaFleur reference because now all I'm going to think about is
it's
Peter
hard.
LaFleur.
Old habits die hard. Yeah, exactly.
It's okay.
Old habits die hard.
But no, and look, I didn't come onto the show this morning anticipating ripping Aaron Rodgers, but he wasn't good enough. And the problem is people look at the numbers and they say, oh well, look at these. He did this. He only did this. Look, no one's defending the interceptions by Brady. Those were bad. The problem is, and this is, you can go right back and you can find a parallel and look at Seattle, NFC Championship Game, 2014. Russell Wilson turned the ball over 4 times, and same exact thing. The Packers offense did not capitalize on turnovers, and yes, were there drops? Absolutely. Brady had them too early. I mean, let's not forget there at one point I think Brady was 7 for 11 to start the game, or 7 for 12, and there was 4 drops credited to his receivers. So the point is you have to be able to capitalize on those turnovers. And as I mentioned, before Brady threw a single interception, the Bucs had already scored 28 points. So, again, this wasn't so much about Tom as it was about the Packers offense not capitalizing on those mistakes, because three interceptions equals 6 points for the Packers. One interception equals 7 points for the Buccaneers, and it came at a devastating time too, because that was set up by that set up the end of the second half, or end of the first half touchdown that really, like Mike just said a minute ago, was kind of the first lunge of the dagger into the heart of the Packers, if you want to get analytical or get I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just excited to have John on here. So he's waiting anxiously. Let's get him involved, because I know John's going to have a lot to say, and we're going to have a lot to talk about, because guess what, John? I think it's going to be an interesting offseason in Green Bay, and we're going to certainly get to some of that here today. But let's talk about the game, and what did you think ultimately was the turning point in that game last night?
Good morning, guys. I was just getting over last night's game, and you had to bring up the 2014 NFC Championship game.
It's hard not
accurate. 4 interceptions by Russell Wilson, and the Packers could take advantage of it. They continued to kick field goals. Aaron did not have a good day against the Seattle Seahawks, at the time of the best defense in football. If they had recovered an onside kick, they win the game and go to the Super Bowl. So the thing with Aaron Rodgers, and I think he played okay yesterday, not great, but he had to be great for the Green Bay Packers to win. His defense did create 3 turnovers, but he wasn't able to take advantage of that. That's why he wasn't great yesterday. There were a few other things as well that I have some, concerns about. Twice they were in the gold zone, and the Packers called inside the 20, the red zone, inside the 10, the gold zone. They've been the best team in football all year. 2 times they completely abandoned the run game inside the 10. Now, you don't need to just run the ball into the end zone, but you can use the run to set up some play action pass or some
I have
boots,
a number for you. I have a number.
Which is something they do so well. But
two. I'll let you keep going.
Yeah,
I just want to, because this helps you. 2 of 9. Aaron Rodgers in the red zone and goal to go situations, and those 7 incompletions I think were the most he's had in whatever it is. So to your point, I had that written down.
It's out of character. Yeah, no, it's out of character. So, and again, I think they try to play a little bit too much hero ball, whether it's Matt LaFleur or Aaron Rodgers, and they got away from what they do really well, which really sets him up to be so efficient. And again, Tampa Bay pretty much shut down the run game, although they were successful at times with some zone blocking and some zone reads, and they got to the outside a little bit more. You weren't going to run the ball up the middle against Tampa Bay yesterday, especially when Vita Vea was on the field. He's like the size of a jumbotron. I mean, he just takes up 3 blockers. So that was my concern too. Devontae Adams drops what would have been a touchdown pass. The third down play, 3rd and goal, late in the game, Rodgers probably should have run to the end zone. I don't know if he would have made it, but he would have got closer than the incompleted pass. And now maybe you have a difference on 4th down. But the game really turned, and I think Mike brought this up. The end of the second quarter, it's 14-10. I'm sitting there going, okay, the Buccaneers have played pretty darn well in this first half, and you're only down 4, and you're going to get the ball back to start the second half. And Rodgers throws that interception. Now, that should have been a flag against Sean Murphy-Bunting, but they weren't calling those all day until the fourth quarter, and rightfully so. That the call against Kevin King was the right call. That was, he grabbed his jersey and you saw 3 feet of his undershirt. That's a hold. Again, Kevin King was the worst player on the field yesterday. I have no problem with that.
John, before you go on, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and this is something that I was actually trying to convince some of my colleagues and some of my listeners yesterday. It wasn't so much that Brady got the benefit of the call or they screwed over the Green Bay Packers. That call was so blatant you couldn't let it go, and that's exactly what happened. It wasn't that they picked and chose when they wanted to call it. If that hadn't been called and the game was decided on something so blatant, it would have been worse. The referees in that case would rather take the lumps for the correct call than take the lumps for the incorrect call. So thank you for setting the record straight on that. Please continue. I didn't mean to interject.
No, that's okay. Here's the thing. If Jair Alexander does that, they probably don't throw a flag because Jair
Right.
Alexander is an elite corner who played great yesterday. When you're as bad as Kevin King was yesterday, the officials kind of trained on you, right? It's almost like the Celtics are constantly complaining about too many fouls. Well, you commit fouls. Daniel Tice is essentially the Celtics, version of Kevin King. So, he got burned deep twice, especially at the end of the quarter, second quarter. That was the game to me. And that followed that interception by Rodgers. And then what the hell Mike Pettin was doing in that situation, I don't know. Was that an ode to Greg Williams where we're just going to, let their fastest guy run by our worst cornerback? And the thing about Scotty Miller and Troy Aikman, who I like a lot, I think he was a little misguided. Maybe wanted to say something differently. He says, Tom Brady always has a guy like Scotty Miller on the team, Danny Amendola and Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. Well, just say it. He always has that white receiver that you consider an overachiever. Well, Scotty Miller was the fastest guy on the field yesterday for both teams. He's a 4.25 guy. Yeah, and Kevin King, who looked like he didn't have the right cleats on, was flailing all day. I have no clue what they were doing in that situation. I've never been a fan of Mike Pettin. Look at his pedigree, right?
Brady
Jets,
has.
Buffalo,
Brady
Cleveland.
loves Mike Pettin.
Really? Oh, Brady loves most every defensive coordinator. Figures out.
True.
I mean, in the second half, I thought Green Bay did a good job.
You called it on Friday, but
yeah. Well,
I was worried about Mike Pettin.
Well, 9-0 going into this game, now 10-0 against Mike Pettin. Obviously Brady, and it's kind of
well, don't exaggerate. He's 11-3. He's 11-3 against Mike Pettin. I mean, Mike Pettin was the defensive coordinator when the Jets beat the Patriots back in 2010. So Pettin's team did beat Brady 3 times while he was the defensive coordinator with the Jets.
Whatever. It's a very either way. It's a very
he owns them like. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that bothers me sometimes with Brady guys. You don't need to exaggerate. He's the greatest quarterback ever, but he has lost 3. Pettin has beat him 3 times.
Well, that was just I wasn't exact. That was just that was misinformation on my part. I forgot about that game with the Jets, like a lot of Patriots fans have. I mean, how do you remember that one? Yeah. You kind of push that in the back, but no, I mean, look, that's the thing, and we talk about Aaron Rodgers, and we talked a lot coming into this week that this was far bigger for him. And I thought yesterday, for the most part, we got a great. I said it on Twitter. I tweeted it, maybe midway through the third quarter. I thought this was a great game. I thought the mistakes that were happening were a little bit more indicative of the defense for the, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the Bucs defense were forcing Rodgers into mistakes, and same with Brady. Like, I mean, the Green Bay on one of those picks, I mean, Green Bay had a free release right to him, and Brady, I know what he was trying to do. Right. It just didn't happen. He tried to just get it as far as he could, and in worst case scenario, maybe it falls out of bounds. This just didn't happen. We saw him like looking, I don't even know. He was trying to do like that weird S he used to draw in school, like the little 3D S thing. His body was just all contorted. But the bottom line was like this is kind of what's gonna be Rodgers' MO, because again, I'm not piling on the guy, but you bring up Seattle, and that's another prime example of situations where, look, he had a really good game. Aesthetically, it looks really good. You look at the stat line, you see 10 or 11 incompletions. He threw the ball like 40-something times. He had over 300, 60-something yards. Really nice stat line. But the problem is there was too many plays left out on the field, and you just cannot do that against any offense, let alone a Tom Brady offense. And you look at the flip side, had Green Bay turned the ball over 3 times, the Bucs likely win by multiple scores. And it's really not a.
They did turn it over twice.
Yeah, but I think offset.
Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay
offset.
Took better advantage of those. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Created 14 points. I mean, yeah, and again, I think the third play of the second half was the Aaron Jones fumble. We never saw Aaron Jones again. Yeah. He got lit up and fumbled, and that left a really short field. But give Tampa credit for doing that, and that made it 28-10. And I'm like, this is going to get ugly like every other NFC Championship game that he loses. But he fought back and made some nice throws and battled. On the third goal late, probably he's got a shot to get to the end zone with his legs. He's not afraid to run. He just had a rushing touchdown last week against the Rams, but now it would have been 4th and 3 if he gets hit. now you're in a situation you got to go. And again, it's easy now to say they should have gone on 4th and 9. But Dan Orlovsky on ESPN this morning made a really good point there. There aren't a lot of plays for 4th and 9. There's fewer plays 4th and goal from the 9 because you have to have a play that goes 9 yards but can't go 20.
Yeah.
And Orlovsky knows better than anybody the depth of the end zone, right? Because he famously ran out of it.
Maybe he doesn't know it as well as everyone.
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe that's well, he said 20 yards, not 19.
Yeah, exactly.
The end zone is 11 yards. But I think it's a great point because that's a tough call, right? 4th and goal from the 9. Especially those receivers couldn't get,
and they
don't have separation a lot. Other than Devontae Adams, their guys are more speed guys. Yeah.
Let's act like it would have been a guarantee score had they gone for it, regardless of if they picked up a few extra yards or gone 4th and 9.
Right.
I read it already. They were struggling in the red zone. So I don't necessarily I thought they should have gone for it. I thought maybe I don't think it was a terrible decision. It was just, at the end of the day, I thought they were just kind of in a rock and a hard place. Because what do you do? Go ahead.
What about after you kick the field goal, cut it to 5? There's 2:05 left. And again, Tampa Bay is not the best special teams unit in the league, but the only thing is Green Bay's is worse.
Yeah.
And remember the kickoff returner, the only thing you got to do is get to the 2-minute warning with that. And he slides, it leaves 2:02 on the clock. So now, it's an extra play that Green Bay was granted. But what about the onside kick in that situation? Because you're essentially giving the ball back to Tom Brady, who needs 1 first down. And if my life depends on it, I'm going to figure that Brady's going to get a first down.
That's the thing. You look at it and say, okay, he certainly didn't have a great second half. I think a lot of that was made worse by the fact that they didn't have the ball much, but when they did have the ball, they turned it over, which made things seem a lot worse. So conventional wisdom tells you, okay, that offense is struggling. Let's trust our defense. But like you said, it's Tom Brady. I don't care if he goes 0 for 37 prior to that drive. And look, he made the plays, and people are gonna talk, and you already brought it up. People are gonna talk about that penalty. That's gonna be a lazy take to try to explain why the Packers lost. I mean, Packers fans are talking about that as if they're watching Angels in the Outfield, the movie, where you see the outfielder flying with no one attached to him. But what actually happened was we were watching the behind the scenes where there was a pulley holding this guy, and that's exactly what happened. And but that's that's going to be the conversation. Oh, it was this, it was that. But I thought the play call to Chris Godwin, the slide play, I thought that was a great play. I thought that was a fantastic play call. It was a little bit different from what they were normally doing. And it caught the Packers off guard because they, you could see it that they paused. There was a brief hesitation.
Exactly.
And that's all it took for him to get that edge. And it was a high percentage play, and it was one they had it run all game. And I was very impressed for the most part with the play calling. There was a couple drives where it kind of felt like they were starting to revert back to bad Bucs play calling. But for the most part, I thought the play calling was really well. And again, Leonard Fournette, I've been harsh on him because I do think people kind of fell back on him being a first round pick and just assuming that he was a big factor when he struggled a lot this season. He's been great in the playoffs. He's been fantastic, and
he has.
This is looking like a team that for now 7 weeks now they haven't lost a game. They've beat some really good teams in the process and some really good quarterbacks to boot, and setting itself for
and on the road. I mean, they won 3 playoff games on the road, and I believe 2 out of the last 3 games in the regular season also on the road. So they've won 5 out of 6 on the road. I thought that was one of the reasons that Green Bay could win this game and should win this game, is the Buccaneers were going to their 5th road game in 6 weeks. But
with actual fans,
Green Bay,
which I think can't be understated.
With actual fans, and again they deferred. Brady goes down the field, and Kevin King has trouble with Evans, and now it's 7-0, and I'm never comfortable with Green Bay chasing because a couple of other things they do, which I don't know if it's LaFleur or if it's Rodgers, they bleed the clock so much.
Yeah, they did that a lot early. I don't know why.
They do that a lot, and I think what happens is, and again, and sometimes what makes you a great player can also be a negative. He's a very bright guy. We all admit that Aaron Rodgers is bright. I think sometimes too bright, where he's trying to get into the perfect play and the perfect situation. And Peyton Manning used to do this, right? Where Peyton Manning would be, bringing the clock down to 1, and it just gets you out of rhythm. I wouldn't mind if they'd gone a little more hurry up. Now, the only problem with that is it can really backfire. I mean, they did score back-to-back touchdowns doing that, but they just continually have the clock, going down. And I'm like, you're down 18. This does need to speed up a little. We saw that with Brady in the Super Bowl. He's down 28-3. They weren't bleeding clock. So I think sometimes he's too smart for his own good. And even with his comments after the game, I think he's a deep thinker. He's analytical, and he obviously is disappointed yesterday. But back to the drawing board. They've got the 1994 49ers to look at, because the 49ers lost back-to-back NFC Championship games and finally broke through in 1994. So that's he can look to his boyhood idol, or one of his boyhood idols, for some strength.
And look, I think, again, I've said it already about 5 times that I'm a biggest Brady honk out there. I think that has something to do with it too. I think when there's pressure on you, I think there's pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Knowing that, like, as much as teams come in and say you can't give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers, well, there's very few quarterbacks, those quarterbacks we speak of, had that said to. So if you're an Aaron Rodgers, there's probably one or two quarterbacks out there that you say, oh, you don't want to give the ball back to this guy. Well, Tom Brady's one of them.
Exactly.
And so I think that forces them into decisions, or maybe some more conservative play when you're trying to, like you said, overthink things. I'm guilty of overthinking things in regular life and having it be a negative.
Oh, yeah.
Real quick, because I do want to get to the AFC side of things. You did mention part of the press conference from yesterday, and I'm going to play the clip, because I do want to ask you about this. I want to get your opinion on this real quick and kind of see what you think.
There's a lot of guys' futures that are uncertain, myself included. That's what's sad about it most. Getting this far, obviously there's going to be an end to it at some point, whether we make it past this one or not, but just the uncertainty is tough, and the finality of it all.
There we go. Unmute the mic. So we know Rodgers he's really good at taking, I'm not going to say shots. That's not what this is. He's good at subtleness. Like he's good at subtleties, trying to say things without actually saying them. I kind of think this was more of a message than a prognostication, but I'd like to get your opinion of that, because I'm not going to sit here now, certainly in the era of Tom Brady going to Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he'll never leave Green Bay, because, well, a year ago now, I was saying that about Tom Brady, and that's the one thing I've been wrong about Tom Brady in my life. It's that he would never leave the Patriots. So what are your thoughts on that?
My dream is that Aaron Rodgers finishes his career with Bill Belichick and the Patriots, and it won't happen next year. Again, he signed for 3 more years. They're wedded to him next year, because if they trade him, and they'll still get a lot for a quarterback of this caliber, even if he only plays 3 more years. I mean, he goes to a team, it becomes an instant contender. But the cap hit would be humongous. And are they ready to go to Jordan Love now, who was not even active for most of the games this year? As they're going to all of a sudden break him out and hope that he does well. I think it is kind of a message. I would assume that Mike Pettin, the defensive coordinator, and Sean Menenga, the special teams coordinator, will both be called to the principal's office soon to hand in their playbooks, and they'll move on. And they need to get a better defensive coordinator who's more in style with the way the league is now, a young guy that may bring some new concepts. Rodgers, again, is a very deep thinker, but from the people I've talked to that cover them, he doesn't say things without thinking them out. He's not just like a fly by the seat of his pants type guy. He's very measured and analytical, oftentimes kind of passive aggressive. I guess my 2 favorite athletes are really good at being passive aggressive, he and LeBron James. So, I think it's a message where I can't see them moving him. And really, where's a better situation for him? I mean, this is still a pretty good team. You got back-to-back NFC Championship games. You got to shore up another cornerback, maybe an athletic linebacker, a little depth on the offensive line. And yesterday you saw the loss of Bakhtiari did hurt. It didn't in the previous 2 games. So where's better? I mean, is it the Rams? Yeah, that'd be interesting, right? That'd be an interesting move. Because
realistically,
but where is a better situation?
Realistically, I mean, New England's not crazy because you think about, obviously you would have to assume a lot, though. I mean, if they go out and get Aaron Rodgers, you would imagine that they have a lot of money to spend, and they have the ability to add players to this roster. So that could be a situation where, you can look at it and say, hey, maybe those pieces aren't there yet, but, kind of like the Tom Brady effect. You go out and bring Aaron Rodgers, combine him on the Patriots. Well, maybe Allen Robinson is like, hey, maybe I want to go play in New England with Aaron Rodgers. So, that might be the best situation because, if anyone's going to be able to get the most out of Aaron, and I think, I'm not talking sweeping changes, but I think there's a couple things that he could adjust about his game that could maybe add to more success. You know what I mean? And so to me, I have to look at it and say, well, who's the best at doing that? Well, it's Bill Belichick. So maybe that's the case. I do want to bring up the AFC Championship game just a little bit here because we'll have you on more because we're going to have to talk to you a lot leading into the Super Bowl. But I thought personally that was the best game I've seen from Patrick Mahomes in weeks. I mean, from just start to finish, accuracy, just overall command of the game, and just everything start to finish. I thought that was great because I was telling Mike, that it people overreact to his stuff and think he's far more accurate than I think he actually is. Last night he was great. I thought he was fantastic. I do think it's funny, and I did bring this up to Mike as well, that, for all the folks out there that are saying, well, he's on pace to be the GOAT, this, that, and the other, this is why it's silly, in my opinion. Because I asked Mike, I'm like, in reality, how much ground has he actually gained in this, theoretical? Again, I think the whole notion at this point in his career is foolish to begin with. And that's not an insult to him. I just think come on, we're talking about a guy at the bare minimum who has set the bar at 10 Super Bowl appearances. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. But, if that was a real discussion, how much ground has he actually gained at this point?
Yeah, when you think about it, that's a great point because Mahomes is in his third year because the first year he was in, the Patriots beat the Chiefs in overtime in the AFC Championship game. Last year, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. So this is kind of the rubber match, right? Yeah. They reach it 1-1 in terms of Super Bowl since Mahomes has become a starter. Now, if Mahomes wins 2 weeks from now, he'll have 2 Super Bowls. Brady's at 6. I mean, that's still a lot of ground to make up. The thing is, he's still very young. He's 25. But can Kansas City, not next year or the following year, but for the next 7-8 years, be at this level when he's getting paid a lot of money and, you're going to be able to re-sign Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce or one of those guys, moves on, or we know how football is. This can change quickly. I remember 10 years ago when the Packers won the Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers was 27, and I'm like, this guy's going to win 3 or 4 Super Bowls without question because they were set up to win. The next year they go 15-1 and lose to the Giants, and they've never gotten back to the Super Bowl. I think Andy Reid and that setup is better than what Green Bay's was 10 years ago. Especially give me Andy Reid over Mike McCarthy. I mean, I think that's, not exactly a hot take, but so you don't know what's going to happen with these quarterbacks. You can go back to Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger in 2010, was he 28 years old? And he was close to winning his 3rd Super Bowl, right? I mean, they lost to the Packers 31-25. If Pittsburgh wins that game, and that was a hell of a game, he would have had 3 Super Bowls in 5 years and 28, 29 years old. But no one ever thought that Roethlisberger was at the talent that Mahomes is. That's the thing that separates that comparison. In 2 weeks, it's going to be interesting to see these 2 quarterbacks. I think one of the analysts said it perfectly yesterday. It may have been Romo, which I don't usually give him too much credit, but this is almost like if Michael Jordan, late in his career, still winning, like the 98 version of Michael Jordan, got to play LeBron James, actually in a basketball game, because we're talking about the guy who's perceived as the GOAT in Michael Jordan and Tom Brady going against somebody who, can get into that discussion. And again, Mahomes has a long career ahead of him.
I was going to say LeBron is far longer. I heard that.
Closer,
I thought Romo was definitely subdued a little bit yesterday, and I think maybe he got a little nudge from someone last week, because I think we talked about it. That was a bit.
Oh man,
that was very amateur hour last week with him coming off. So I think someone was like, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit on that, and I think that happened.
They got him a sedative too, I think, right? They put a sedative in his coffee or whatever.
Maybe it's like, dude, and I think he might have said, maybe someone else said it, but there was someone who's like, he was getting hyped up about something Mahomes did, and then he kind of just backed off. He was like, all right, maybe a 6-yard completion to a wide open Tyreek Hill isn't something to get overly hyped about. No, that's the thing.
True.
I mean, we're gonna get a rubber match. Obviously, this is a big deal. I look, obviously, if Mahomes wins, that's a check mark to his advantage. Does it technically help him in his pursuit of being the greatest? Sure. What I don't think it does is, it's weird to say, because, like I said, the bar is so high that Mahomes and the Chiefs, they could win 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls and not be on pace. You know what I mean? That's how absurd that we're talking about with Tom Brady. So that's why I implore people to kind of wait a little bit before we start making these judgments, because you know what's going to happen over the next 2 weeks. This is going to be about the GOAT versus the new GOAT. And it's such a, to me, I hate it. Because I think it just devalues the entire conversation when you can talk about so many other different things going into this game. Obviously centered around Brady versus Mahomes. You can talk about the fact that the last team not led by Tom Brady to try to go for 2 Super Bowls was beaten by Tom Brady, the Seattle Seahawks, a team that a lot of teams saw as like, hey, look, this is the next big thing. So, again, I think there's a lot of things to unwrap over the next 2 weeks. We're not going to do the GOAT versus GOAT debate, aside from tearing it down, because, again, I think that's a bit lazy and kind of a cheap storyline that people bite on. But
I get turned off by it too, Ian, because the definition greatest of all time, it greatest
it's singular.
Means one.
Singular, yeah, exactly.
Right. So
people
that's
say,
why
one of the GOATs.
I make my debate one. No, there's only one GOAT. This is singular, like you said. And look, I think obviously Brady's the GOAT. I mean, until someone even approaches him, which isn't even the case. I mean, damn, he went into the NFC for 1 year and has represented the NFC in as many Super Bowls as 2 great quarterbacks, Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, and he beat them both. Yeah. And I know he wasn't perfect in either game, but you know what? At the end of the game, he was the guy smiling, and the other quarterback was, not smiling, and that's what they get paid for. And, unfortunately, it is a team game. We all agree with that, but the quarterback gets the lion's share of criticism when they lose, and the lion's share of kudos when they win. So, I mean, what this guy is doing is at the same level. Look, I always bring up Bill Russell, and I know it kind of turns some people off because he played so long ago, but as an ultimate winner, my God, I mean, Bill Russell coached 2 championship teams, and I'm getting the feeling that Tom Brady's coaching this one. I think Todd Bowles handles the defense, and I think Brady handles the offense, and Bruce Arians is just along for the ride,
Look, we don't have the time to get into it, but again, I we'll talk off the air, because I do want to get you back on here at some point this week.
Sure.
Todd Bowles has, he's on a hell of a run right now, and again, we don't want to get too much into it because we do have to get off the air right now. But we'll talk about that later in the week. Todd Bowles has been fantastic, and he should be coaching himself right into a job. There's not many available left anymore, but very soon he should be coaching himself.
Just one that no one wants, apparently.
Exactly.
And he also, don't forget, 5 years ago, he won 10 games with the Jets.
Yeah.
With Ryan Fitzpatrick as his quarterback. They were 10-6.
Hey,
they were 10-5 going into week 17 and a chance to get to the playoffs.
You got to get that stink off you after you leave the Jets. You can't turn it right around. Belichick knew that better than anyone. He wasn't there long enough for it to attach itself to him. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back. Mike, who is still here. I
am still here.
We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We're going to keep breaking down this game as we are for the next 2 weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to it. So with that said, I'm going to leave you all with this. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
If Tom Brady wasn't living, y'all could be in the Super Bowl.